cities and regional representatives love to network, which is true, but because they want to make policies that make a difference. And we hope that our continued work together will do just that. And in this spirit, and with the great partnership that has been marking our work the past months, I would like to give the floor to Jamie Morrison, Director of Food System Division at FAO. Jamie, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Emilia, and I'm delighted to be here with all of you today at this Food Systems Summit Independent Side event on inclusive and sustainable urban food systems. At the Food and Agriculture Organization, we're very pleased to join forces with the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments, UCLG, and the Urban Food Systems Working Group to really try to emphasize the fundamental role that urban areas play in food systems transformation, and to strengthen the voice and presence of cities within the Food Systems Summit process and beyond. So today, up to 70% of food which is produced globally is already consumed in areas which are defined as urban. And there is a clear and growing consensus that accelerating the transformation of our food systems requires action on urban food systems. This means an enhanced role, increased engagement, and empowerment of city, local, and regional governments. I'd like in this brief opening remarks to highlight 4 key points which have emerged from summit dialogues, events, and initiatives over the past 12 months and are related very squarely to urban food systems. And before doing so, just to note that the KO is kindly putting links to a number of these dialogues and events in the chat box if you should like more detail. So the first point is that food system transformation requires both horizontal and vertical policy planning coherence. But what does this actually mean? It means first integrating food with other systems such as health and infrastructure. And it also means ensuring coherence between policies and programs at different levels of government, linking the national, local level continuum. This entails, amongst many other things, strengthening the technical, regulatory, institutional, and financial capacities of urban and local administration. My second point is that governance mechanisms which promote meaningful and inclusive engagement of local authorities and stakeholders in national and global food systems are essential. Multi-stakeholder participation is crucial for effective food systems governance at urban and local level. Thirdly, there's an increasing need to leverage place-based solutions for food systems which cut across administrative boundaries. This rural-urban continuum, which is heavily dotted by small cities and rural towns, constitutes a governance vacuum, and new and innovative approaches are urgently needed to fill this. And the fourth point that emerged from the various dialogues and events is that the role of intermediary cities in promoting urban food systems transformation needs far greater recognition. These cities can act as regional market centres or hubs, offering employment opportunities for smaller cities, and they also connect traders and producers with customers and markets in larger metropolitan areas. So taking these 4 points together, what we really need is greater visibility on urban and local food systems and their inclusion in global multi-stakeholder debates. We have a number of forthcoming events, such as the Nutrition for Growth Summit and the Climate Change Summit, which will provide key entry points for doing so. In addition, we have the Committee on World Food Security, the CFS, which is a key mechanism as it is the most important multi-stakeholder and intergovernmental forum in relation to food systems. Let me conclude these remarks by saying a few words about the forces behind today's session and some of the important developments which we see coming post-summit. Firstly, the Urban Food Systems Working Group, which was established in early 2020 and which is co-led by FAO and the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, has been working to raise the voices of cities in the Food Systems Summit process. The working group is currently composed of 26 organisations and includes members of the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments, such as UCLG, ICLEI and C40, and also GTF partners such as UN Habitat and UNCDF. So we have a very good representation across many different constituencies involved in supporting this process. During the summit process, the working group has organised 16 independent summit dialogues on urban food systems covering 26 cities. Also a consultation among cities on game-changing solutions. It's supported or co-hosted, in fact, with the Special Envoy, Agnes Kalibata, one of the 11 global summit dialogues, which we had earlier this year, and a plenary session as part of the main programme of the pre-summit event, which took place in July. And as part of that pre-summit session, the working group launched a call to action for establishing an urban food systems coalition. And the aim of this was to promote coherent action on urban food systems and to foster linkages between national and subnational governments. The Urban Food System Coalition is very well positioned as one of the emerging coalitions and initiatives coming through the Food System Summit action areas. And a number of countries have already expressed their interest in joining this initiative. And again, you can find the link to the call to action and the coalition in the chat box. So a lot has been done, but our work as a united global voice needs to continue well beyond the summit. So I just finished by saying, let us all work together so that the summit becomes a milestone for a greater focus on urban and local food systems and provides us with a real springboard for a stronger voice and role of urban and local governments in defining the transformation of food systems. So thank you, Emilia, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you for the vision and these 4 axes that you have described and call upon for us to consider. But also thank you for the good news about these emerging possibilities from the summit, which we all look forward to fulfilling and to consolidate in these exchanges. Allow me now to share with you a few thoughts on behalf of the constituency, but also on our approach as United Cities and local governments on why this topic is so relevant. What does it mean for us? And as I was saying before, this is not only about having a say in global agendas, but it is about doing the jobs of local and regional governments well, about defining policies that are of importance to the communities. And we need to accept the fact that we live in a system that is enhancing inequalities. We live in a system where there are territories that are losing population while others are having very big numbers of inhabitants that is difficult to deal with. We also live in a moment where there is a lot of uncertainty about employment and jobs. And the ruralization of urban areas, as well as the loss of livelihood in rural areas, are 2 very big topics for anybody that is working at territorial level. So this is why food is at the center of our discussions. Beyond the fact that cities should not be perceived as consumers only and that need to have a different place in the discussion around the food system, it is about a more territorial approach that we need to promote, and one that actually addresses the democratization to food access. It's not only about the productive perspective of food security, but it goes beyond that. I think local and regional governments have a very important role to play also as catalysts of communities, of dialogue, to enhance the awareness of communities about what is at stake around this agenda. We also need to admit that the poorer you are, no matter where in the world, the worse you eat. And this is becoming a problem that is of great relevance for any local and territorial leader. So this is why we need to put this at the heart of the agenda, not only from the perspective of production also in cities, not only from the perspective of consumption, but as a certain, as a central issue that needs to determine the models of proximity that will need to define our sustainable future. This is what is at the stake for us. This is why we think that food democracy will need to have a much higher place in the debates, and we hope that through these dialogues, multi-stakeholder dialogues, we will be able to address that. We are conscious that we need to change the relationship between people and the planet, and also between the governments and the planet, and we are ready to lead that transformation. And I am certain that the members of the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments that are joining us today will really second that. And with the issue of the climate emergency in mind, we need to go also further and trigger model transformation. So we have very high hopes around this agenda, a strong role for local and regional governments from the perspective of political actors, as well as technical solution seekers, and as those level of governments that is closest to the communities and that will be able to raise more awareness about the changes that we need to make, which will be in some cases entailing certain sacrifices and certain transformations that will not be easy for us. So this is what is at the stake for us, for local and regional governments around the world, and we really hope that our seat at the global table will change so that the communities find their way also to those discussions. I am very pleased now to give the floor to my colleague, Mohamed Mbou, Director of Climate, Biodiversity and Food Systems of United Cities and Local Government Africa, to kick off the second part of this meaningful day that we are sharing together, a roundtable around urban food systems challenges and solutions. We are good at identifying both, I would say. Welcome, Mohamed. The floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup, Emilia. C'est un grand honneur pour moi de modérer une table ronde axée sur les systèmes alimentaires urbains, les défis et solutions. Je crois que vous avez tout dit dans l'introduction. Je crois que les systèmes alimentaires urbains actuellement jouent un rôle fondamental, d'autant plus que nous sommes dans un contexte extrêmement difficile parce qu'il est marqué par la question de la pandémie, la question climatique. Et ces deux enjeux majeurs, ces deux problématiques majeures ont permis de mettre en relief quand même le rôle extrêmement important des collectivités locales pour qu'elles puissent participer d'une manière très forte dans la planification de ces systèmes alimentaires. Également, il y a lieu de noter que, effectivement, lorsqu'on parle des systèmes alimentaires, on parle également de cette dynamique qui est en train de déstructurer ou structurer davantage nos villes, parce qu'avec cette démographie galopante et avec une urbanisation aussi galopante, donc qui fait que le système d'alimentation ne suit pas en parallèle avec ces rythmes. Donc, nous avons un panel extrêmement important et très riche et qui va nous permettre un petit peu de connaître un petit peu d'une manière globale le lien entre quel est le lien entre les systèmes alimentaires urbains et la santé et la nutrition. Également, il y a des questions qui émergent également. C'est le lien entre les systèmes alimentaires urbains et les prestations de services publics locaux. Donc, il y a tout un ensemble de questions que nos honorables panélistes puissent nous éclairer sur ça, d'autant plus que nous allons questionner les expériences des différents pays. Et là, je commencerai par M. Donatien Burke, président de la région de San Pedro, pour nous donner l'expérience de la région de San Pedro. Donatien, à vous la parole.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui.
Vous m'entendez? Est-ce que
Oui.
vous m'entendez, s'il vous plaît? D'accord.
Oui,
Je suis Donatien Begré. Je suis Donatien Begré, président de la région de San Pedro, en Côte d'Ivoire. Effectivement, la sécurité alimentaire est un problème aussi important pour la Côte d'Ivoire et en particulier pour la région de San Pedro. Mais il y a une chose qu'il faut dire. Je voudrais intervenir à 3 niveaux, mais très rapidement d'ailleurs. Je voudrais vous présenter les difficultés que nous avons au niveau de la sécurité alimentaire, malgré effectivement toutes les potentialités agricoles que nous avons. Je voudrais vous parler des exemples de ce qui se fait à San Pedro en particulier pour lutter contre la sécurité alimentaire et ce que l'État de Côte d'Ivoire a décidé. Et enfin, pour vous parler aussi de ce que la FAO fait et que nous savons. Donc, très rapidement, il faut dire qu'en Côte d'Ivoire, la sécurité alimentaire repose sur une véritable large de produits agricoles, des produits locaux qui sont notre vivrier naturel. Ce sont des plats traditionnels à base d'attiéké qui sont faits à base de féculents qu'on appelle l'attiéké, le foutou. Je vous cite tout cela parce que vous comprendrez plus tard. Et puis aussi, nous avons énormément de tubercules. Et maintenant, de bananes et de céréales. Le céréales, c'est dérivé, le céréal qui nous permet d'avoir le riz, le mil ou le maïs. Mais ce qui est important, malgré tout cela, toutes ces choses-là qui sont plantées dans les milieux ruraux, la disponibilité de ces produits-là dans les centres urbains n'est pas toujours très évidente. Elle n'est même pas souvent garantie. Parce que cela se heurte aux moyens de transport. À San Pedro, nous avons un taux de pluviométrie qui est très élevé. Donc, souvent, les routes ne sont pas tellement disponibles. Donc, les moyens de transport sont un handicap. Ces produits dont je vous ai parlé aussi sont liés souvent à des facteurs de risque d'altération, parce que ce sont des produits aussi qui sont périssables. Et puis, il y a un véritable problème, c'est un
Je crois que nous avons un problème de communication. Donatien, est-ce que vous m'entendez? Donatien?
Au centre urbain, c'est pas possible. Oui, parfaitement.
Donatien, vous m'entendez? Je crois qu'il y a un problème de communication. On a bien compris qu'au niveau de la Côte d'Ivoire. Donc, il y a lieu de mettre en avant l'interconnectivité entre les différentes zones parce que c'est extrêmement important. En même temps, l'importance des produits terroirs qu'il a mis en avant. Moi, je pense qu'on doit passer rapidement au deuxième orateur, sachant que je voudrais également vous signaler que chaque intervention ne doit pas dépasser 4 minutes pour qu'on puisse être dans l'heure. Donc, je crois que on a presque perdu Donatien. Donc, je vais passer la parole à Madame Virginia Cardozo, directrice de la santé de Montevideo. Donc, qui va nous parler beaucoup plus entre le lien des systèmes alimentaires et la santé et la nutrition. À vous la parole, Madame Virginia. Madame Virginia. Madame Virginia Cardozo, directrice de santé à Montevideo. À vous la parole, s'il vous plaît. OK.
Buenos días. ¿Qué tal? Buen día. Mi nombre es Ariana Bruno y trabajo con la doctora Virginia Cardozo. Buenos días. En la División Salud de la Intendencia de Montevideo. Sí. Bueno, y si me disculpan un segundito, que me voy a trasladar para otra oficina porque hay...
Chers collègues, je pense que nous sommes en train de voir des solutions pour des problèmes techniques. Mais on va y arriver, on a problème de son. ¿Se arregló el tema de sonido?
Sí, sí, está pronto. Listo.
Perfecto.
¿Me podrías repetir, perdón que no manejo mucho el francés? Je ne parle pas français. O no sé si no entendí, capaz que era así.
Adelante, adelante, ya te dieron la palabra.
La idea es un poco contarles, yo tengo una presentación por aquí.
Hola Virginia, yo creo que en estos momentos no vas a poder compartir, vamos a mirar mientras, pero te recomendamos que empieces con tu intervención y vamos mirando mientras hablas. Gracias.
Disculpen por las dificultades técnicas. Bueno, un poquito lo que queríamos compartir con ustedes era que, bueno, en el contexto social y económico y en vista de las dificultades de la población debido a todo lo que sucedió por la pandemia, la pérdida de puestos de trabajo, el descenso del salario real y el crecimiento de la pobreza, más de un 30% aproximadamente, alcanzando más o menos en Montevideo a un 11,6%, en 13,6% para Montevideo, en un contexto país de 11,6%, el gobierno departamental de Montevideo, que inició su gestión en noviembre del 2020, establece un plan de trabajo para abordar la desigualdad, que denominó como Plan ABC, donde sus líneas estratégicas fundamentales son el trabajo, la igualdad, desde la perspectiva de territorio, la salud y la alimentación. En el contexto de lo que tiene que ver con la alimentación, según los datos nacionales, aumentó, como les venía mencionando anteriormente, aumentó muchísimo las cifras relacionadas a la pobreza y la seguridad alimentaria, con un 50% de hogares con niños y adolescentes en la ciudad de Montevideo y el área metropolitana que tienen un alto grado de inseguridad alimentaria, y 7,4% de ellos severa, ¿no? Y bueno, estos números, que son números que tienen que ver un poco con previos a la pandemia, probablemente post pandemia se hayan agravado, ¿no? Bien. Entonces, bueno, que voy a, perdón que me estoy basando un poquito en... Bueno, también no solo los temas de alimentación, sino también reforzar todo lo que es la atención a la salud, debido a que todo este problema alimentario ha generado grandes dificultades, ha impactado enormemente lo que es toda la salud. El bajo peso, la prematurez, embarazadas con ciertos niveles de nutrición y anemia. Entonces, uno de los focos fundamentales del Plan ABC es, como les mencionaba, el tema de la alimentación. En la actualidad, más de 49.000 personas se alimentan en 307 ollas y merenderos populares que se generaron como medidas sociales, ¿no?, que la propia ciudadanía impulsó para dar respuesta a la emergencia sanitaria en lo que respecta a la alimentación, ¿no?, a personas que quedaron sin trabajo, sin acceso a la alimentación, como les venía mencionando anteriormente. Bueno, es entonces que ante esta realidad la Intendencia de Montevideo definió generar apoyos concretos a través de suministros de alimentos e insumos, como por ejemplo orientación nutricional, acondicionamiento de lugares para la elaboración de los alimentos, y para garantizar la inocuidad de las preparaciones y una adecuada administración de los alimentos. Bien, y tiene mucho que ver con todo esto de cómo ¿no?, los sistemas de alimentación locales, ¿no?, esto que se planteaban en las distintas preguntas, ¿no?, cómo los sistemas de alimentación locales se relacionan, ¿no?, se vinculan con la mirada o la óptica territorial, ¿no? Es decir, cómo las poblaciones, la asociación civil, la comunidad misma, generó estos sistemas de alimentación que para dar respuesta a una emergencia sanitaria como la que estamos viviendo. Bueno, el programa de apoyo alimentario en el marco del Plan ABC que se generó en el municipio, tiene como población objetivo fundamentalmente niños y niñas menores de 3 años que presenten desnutrición o retraso en crecimiento, y mujeres embarazadas y en lactancia que presentan malnutrición por déficit. El objetivo general del programa es contribuir a mejorar la situación alimentaria de niños y niñas menores de 3 años embarazadas que presentan malnutrición por déficit y que sean usuarios de los servicios de atención que están a cargo de las intendencias de la Intendencia de Montevideo. ¿Qué componentes tiene el plan alimentario? Bueno, tiene un componente de transferencia monetaria, el acompañamiento social, también una línea de educación nutricional, de atención a la salud, y tiene una duración en esta primera instancia de 12 meses. ¿Cómo se captan las personas que necesitan ser parte de este programa? Ellos se captan a través de la consulta de usuarios, ¿no? Y se definieron distintos criterios de inclusión. Podrían ser captados por distintas disciplinas que trabajen en los servicios de atención a la salud que dentro de la Intendencia. Podrían ser médicos, médicos de familia, ginecólogo, pediatra, licenciado en enfermería, nutricionista, entre... ¿Sí? No sé si...
S'il vous plaît, parce que nous avons un temps précis. Donc, nous avons déjà dit au départ que l'intervention doit se limiter à des messages clés de 4 minutes. Donc, on s'excuse, il faut conclure, s'il vous plaît.
Para que puedas concluir en algunos segundos, si puedes, que tenemos que seguir con el programa. Muchas gracias.
Concluyo. ¿Ya estoy por terminar o termino ya?
Okay.
Ya termino.
Non, ça y est, donc c'est terminé.
Ok.
Merci beaucoup, parce que bon, nous sommes pressés par le temps.
Sorry. Ya estoy por terminar.
Ok, merci Virginia. Donc, des statistiques que vous avez partagées avec nous, en même temps les plans d'urgence que vous avez mis en place en lien avec la chaîne alimentaire. Donc, on vous remercie. Je passe rapidement la parole à Bruno Oliveira, directeur des relations internationales et de la coopération Rio de Janeiro. À vous la parole, Monsieur Bruno.
Merci beaucoup. Dear UCLG Secretary General Emilia Saiz, dear FAO Director Jamie Morrison, cities representatives and fellow colleagues, good afternoon. On behalf of Mayor Eduardo Paes, I would like to thank very much for the invitation to participate and discuss the role and impacts of food systems on territorial development. It is an honor for the city of Rio to be part of this meeting. Tomorrow, countries will gather to discuss how food systems can advance the achievements of the SDGs. And I take this opportunity to highlight the paramount role of cities and subnational governments to promote and accelerate the adoption of food policies aligned with the Paris Agreement. The COVID-19 pandemic has unveiled gaps and disruptions in the current model of urban food systems. And as just mentioned by my colleague from Montevideo, it enhanced the inequalities and deepened our difficulties to access healthy and sustainable diets. After the pandemic, around 82% of the population living in vulnerable conditions in Rio now depend on donations to feed themselves. 68% of them have no money to buy food in at least 1 day a week. And the average number of meals per day for those families is 1.9. That is less than 2 meals a day. Hunger and malnutrition in their various ways represent an inconvenience to health and individual well-being. And this generates high social and economic costs to families, communities, and municipalities as well. Fighting food insecurity among the vulnerable population and promoting greater access to healthy food is essential to reach an equitable and equal city while guaranteeing fundamental rights for all. Rio de Janeiro advocates that the process of recovery necessarily goes through the promotion of food policies that are equal and inclusive. Cities, of course, are at the forefront of the debate about sustainable food policies. Their territories represent powerful hubs that manage and accelerate transitions to new development models. A food system that is inclusive, multifunctional, and sustainable must incorporate different aspects of a cyclic approach. And I'll mention very briefly those aspects. Production, of course, processing, distribution of food, access to food, consumption, and waste management. This strategy must be integrated with broader initiatives to promote urban sustainability, reduce the urban-rural divide, and promote the participation of different actors towards an inclusive and multi-level approach. To implement this a similar strategy, Rio has just launched a strategic plan, which is a document with concrete actions that will guide the municipal administration and its public policies for a sustainable future for our city. Our focus is to seek results through the goals and projects that will ensure a better quality of life for those who are born and live in the city, and to serve as an inspiration for other cities as well. Rio understands that to ensure a connected territory that aims for its citizens' longevity and well-being, we must transit to a sustainable urban food system that gives incentives to family farming and agroecological production, and approximates producers to consumers as well. And for that, we are committed to serving until 2024, at least 26 million meals in community kitchens and in popular restaurants as part of the food and nutrition security program of the city. We will also increase our agricultural production by 10% until 2023, stimulating the expansion of rural activities and boost food production of the Green Gardens municipal program by 30% by 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, these initiatives and goals could be further expanded if cities' governments receive financial and technical support from international organizations and private sector through directive funding and supplies. Therefore, I commend very strongly the FAO for promoting the call to action towards a coalition on urban food systems. And I seize this opportunity to call all representatives gathered here today to enhance a multi-level governance in this regard. And I conclude my remarks by stressing that cities and local governments, through an organized coalition, can manage to cope with several global challenges by promoting a food governance that entails sustainable development and includes the participation of all. Thank you very much.
Donc, merci beaucoup pour ce partage vraiment très intéressant d'un système alimentaire qui repose en fait sur les 4 piliers, la durabilité, la synergie, l'inclusivité et la connectivité. Je crois que c'est extrêmement intéressant ce que vous avez partagé, en même temps l'importance des territoires dans la mise en place de cette dynamique. Donc, je passe tout de suite la parole à Dr Malaïs Choudhury, secrétaire adjoint, division des collectivités locales du Bangladesh. À vous la parole, Dr Malaïs.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm indeed very happy to be here on Zoom platform among you at the local and regional government day, inclusive and sustainable urban food systems for territorial development. Honorable Moderator, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Under a visionary leadership, our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh, has achieved a credible improvement in food production for feeding its more than 165 million people. Now I am going to speak on some challenges and solutions for urban food system. The challenge of Dhaka food system. Dhaka is our capital and very large and growing megacity. One of the biggest challenges is its scale. Feeding more than 20 million people a day is no easy task. Another issue relates to the way the city organized and governed. Up until now, there has been a lack of focus on food system. Also, Dhaka is just not a city. There are 4 different city corporations nearby Dhaka. Finally, the issues are complex. To give an example from some of the most significant issues are fresh markets. These are built from 20 to 30 years ago and have not kept up with the rapid pace of development of Dhaka city. There are 350 of them. Some are public, some are private, very temporary. Investing in them, the maintaining them, managing them, ensuring food safety is a problematic and important issue of Bangladesh also, and it requires training, education, and oversight of markets to good safety practice in homes. Ensuring the urban poor have sufficient access to safe, affordable, healthy, and nutritious food has been also an issue. Though our government, present government, has taken a numbers of package and food and cash incentives distributing among the vulnerable people during this pandemic. Now I am going to mention some complex issues like food losses and wastage, strengthening food supply chains, investing in future food system infrastructure needs, and planning for a city that keeps growing and evolving. What the solutions? Working together for the food system. The Urban Food Council is the major things we are thinking. Given the many competing demands and urgent issues, Dhaka city governments or city corporation have adopted an inclusive approach that brings stakeholders together to discuss, prioritize issues, and work together, creating or improving policies that strengthen the food system. At the center of the City Food Council, which is working together, that brings different city government agencies together, such as health, city planners, revenue officers, magistrate, with the national government or our agencies or ministries, such as Department of Livestock, Bangladesh Food Safety Authority, Food Ministry, Department of Agriculture, the civil society, community, private sector stakeholders. These councils meet regularly every 6 weeks or so to discuss progress, needs, and coordinate actions. As a national government, we are encouraging city corporation to work and coordinate with other agencies and stakeholders. Now we are creating a shared vision for the food system. The food councils led a process to solicit feedback and ideas from the citizens and a range of stakeholders in each city, including students, private sector, civil society, government, officials, and universities to create 4 city charters. A food charter provides a vision for the future of the city's food system. Each city has its own, reflecting its unique characteristics and needs, and the aspiration of the people. Mayors are in the process of endorsing them, which is happening in the coming days as we approach World Food Day. This providing a unifying vision, a set of values and priorities actions to reach the vision. Towards the metropolitan food system government platform, we are now growing just a platform. With these 4 cities together, the governments, our ministries, and private sectors and city society stakeholders, we are setting up a metropolitan level food system governance platform. This platform will create a means of coordinating actions, promoting and scaling up relevant policies, and shaping planning to address large complex needs together and into the future. We are trying a new approach, just our innovatives. We have also been experimenting with a number of important new approaches too. These includes new technologies to break down and utilize food waste from markets and convert it to animal feed, environmental friendly compost, energy, promote rooftop gardening by offering many incentives to the provide additional fruit and vegetables to the people, and promoting urban agriculture for the urban poor and supplement their national nutritious needs and reduce food insecurity. So now we are going to, while cities in Bangladesh are a new tech to taking on the challenges of food system, the cities of Dhaka, with the support of the government, are taking to build a more resilient and sustainable urban food system. Thank you very much for my patient hearing.
Sorry, Mr. Ingbo, we cannot hear you. I think you're muted.
Donc, je disais que je remerciais infiniment Dr Malai de Bangladesh d'avoir partagé avec nous le cadre de gouvernance qui est un cadre extrêmement intéressant et inclusif et qui permet de structurer davantage la chaîne d'alimentation. D'autant plus qu'on connaît dans le Bangladesh, il y a des villes extrêmement, des mégapoles. Tout de suite, je donne la parole à... Je donne la parole. Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Est-ce qu'il y a un problème? Je donne la parole à Vicente Domingo. À vous la parole, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you very much. I will be very brief. I will take less than 5 minutes. First of all, thank you very much to Emilia, Scythe, one more time, and all the different organizations which you are involved in this wonderful meeting all around the world. Thinking about these systems, urban food systems, I think that we have the challenge of building a new identity through urban food systems. For example, this time right now, we, the citizens of the world, the whole world, we are talking about the several emerging lessons we have learned, especially in the last years. In this process, we are starting different pipelines of work, and it will bring new scenarios. In this context, a very clear idea appears. What we do in the next 20 years will condition life and the dignity of human life on the entire planet. So pipelines of work are emerging in front of us. Between the skills of the public administration, it is joined different sectors. And this is a call to action of about mayors around the world and regional governors in order to take the problem, take the horn of the bull, and please create groups of work, because people want to be part of this. Families will be happy to be part of this. Schools, universities, private sector will be happy to be part of the different scenarios and the different solutions that we appear. For example, a wonderful pipeline of work is the protection of small farmers, families of farmers, protection of small farmers around the world, create a small and global economy, create dignity, create social sustainability, economic sustainability, environmental sustainability. So let's think this wonderful challenge that we have in front of our eyes, and let's make a wonderful task of multilateralism in order to transform dignity, identity, and how people feel around the world. Thank you very much. It's over.
Donc, merci beaucoup, Vicente et Domingo, de votre intervention très pertinente, très prospective. Et donc, je passe la parole à Daniel. Le dernier intervenant, c'est Daniel Adénie, donc d'ICLEI Afrique. À vous la parole, Daniel.
Thank you so much, moderator. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Go ahead.
Great, thanks. I'm Daniel Adeni, and I'm with ICLEI Africa, and I'm basically going to be reflecting on the dialogues that we have organized in 26 cities in the world. ICLEI Africa, ICLEI working with FAO, we organized dialogues, multi-stakeholder food dialogues between April and August 2021 in 26 cities, and we were able to organize 16 dialogues. So I'm going to be reflecting on the outcomes of this dialogue. Especially before I go into the outcomes, just basically to reflect on the purpose of the dialogues, were to highlight the role that local governments are playing in improving the urban food system, as well as to identify key food system challenges, opportunities, and priorities. And also essentially to generate discussions, action, and commitments from local governments for food system transformation. So like I said earlier, we organized dialogues in 26 cities, spread across the whole world. And what came out from the dialogue was a very pressing need to ensure that food systems in urban areas are resilient and sustainable. And what was emphasized was the importance of transitioning to a just and inclusive food systems, which ensure equitable livelihoods and food security in cities. And participants' perspectives or contribution are anchored around some critical proposals that we have tagged critical action areas, and I'm going to be reflecting on some of that. One of the things that came out strongly is the need to invest in critical infrastructure to drive food system transformation. And this infrastructure includes market infrastructure, storage infrastructure, and there is the belief that with this kind of infrastructure, inclusivity in the food system can be enhanced. One thing that also came out very strongly in the dialogues was the need to begin to think about how we want to better plan our cities in terms of urban planning and design, and create spaces and places and infrastructure that make it easy for people to access healthy and sustainable foods. And another thing that came out, one of the critical action area was the need to invest in efficient data management systems. In other words, when we talk about food system governance or the formulation of effective policies, we cannot do this without investing in data to drive policies and even the evaluation of these policies. One of the things that also came out strongly that was emphasized that we need to begin to look at innovative financing models to overcome the challenges relating to resource constraint, and this we need to look at subsidy schemes for provision of input for farmers, revolving loans, and cooperatives. Another thing that came out strongly was the need to begin to look at how then do we mitigate against climate change. So climate change adaptation and mitigation was a very strong that came out. And there was the emphasis on how we can begin to think around how we reduce food miles and think about food loss and food waste. How do we begin to reduce all those things? And an integrated approach to food waste management strategies was emphasized by a lot of participants in the dialogues, and this must cut across the entire food value chain, and also to begin to incorporate circular economic perspective or principles into the food system. I think that came out very strongly. Also, a lot of participants emphasized the need to begin to think about multi-level governance. And what does that mean? It means we need to strengthen the linkages between national, regional, and local policies and strategies associated with the food system. And it came out also strongly that within government departments, better coordination is needed to foster better food system governance. And so better intersectoral coordination was emphasized, and better engagement and collaboration between government and non-government actors was emphasized. We need to begin to look at the role that civil societies can play to push the agenda of the urban food system and to ensure that we have a food system that is inclusive for all. And one thing that came out very strongly also through the dialogues was the need to create spaces for continuous dialogue. A lot of participants emphasized the fact that these kind of spaces have been lacking before. In other words, where we will bring the different kind of actors within the food system together to deliberate on issues relating to the food system. And so such spaces, we need to continue to dialogue. We need to continue to foster partnership between and among food system stakeholders for sharing, for co-learning, and for co-creation and cooperation. Some of these things were emphasized in the dialogue, and I believe that documents relating to that has been shared. One thing that we cannot, as I'm wrapping up, one thing that cannot be emphasized is the fact that now the urban food system agenda needs to be brought to the fore. And I believe with the dialogue, we were able to do that because emphasis have always been on food system at the national level without paying attention to city level food system. But through the dialogue, we were able to bring attention to that and emphasize that, yes, indeed, we need to begin to pay attention to those people who don't have the voices that are in a way excluded within the food system in urban areas, and how can we then begin to include them? I believe we were able to do that through the dialogues. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Over to you.
On vous entend pas.
Vous m'entendez?
Oui, maintenant, oui.
Merci, Emilia. Donc, je vous remercie, Daniel, pour cette présentation pertinente. Effectivement, les outcomes du dialogue étaient quand même des recommandations extrêmement importantes dans la mesure que la question de la gouvernance verticale constitue l'un des piliers pour une meilleure stabilisation du système de la chaîne alimentaire. Effectivement, si on peut, à mon avis, résumer un petit peu les différentes interventions, donc il y avait, à mon avis, quatre aspects ou quatre piliers qui émergent dans cette discussion. Effectivement, cette gouvernance doit s'appuyer autour d'une synergie qui doit être faite entre le rural et l'urbain. Il est extrêmement important à ce qu'il y ait une planification qui doit être faite dans ce sens et que la question de la prise en compte de cette synergie est fondamentale dans la mise en place d'une chaîne d'alimentation important. Un deuxième aspect que je trouve également, c'est la question d'inclusivité. Je crois que l'inclusivité et la justice, on le voit à travers les plans qui ont été élaborés, et les plans d'urgence qui ont été élaborés et qui prouvent quand même que la question d'inclusivité est surtout est fondamentale. Troisième point que je voudrais également mettre en relief, c'est la question de la durabilité. Et il est fondamental à ce que, et là, ça revient toujours à la question de la question de gouvernance et de l'implication des collectivités locales dans le processus de planification de la chaîne alimentaire. Donc, il est extrêmement important aussi. Il y avait la question de la connexion, la connexion et la mise en commun du système alimentaire qui a été mis en avant par notre collègue du Côte d'Ivoire. Je crois que les 4 piliers sur lesquels la chaîne alimentaire en milieu urbain doit s'appuyer. Et là, je voudrais remercier l'ensemble des panélistes. Et en même temps, je voudrais remercier Emilia et les organisateurs pour cet événement. Et je voudrais tout de suite passer la parole au deuxième panel qui va être modéré par Kostas Stamoulis. C'est un conseiller principal de la FAO. À vous la parole, Monsieur Kostas. Et merci encore une fois.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I'm delighted to be here. I'm Kostas Stamoulis. I've been with FAO almost 30 years, retired in the end of 2018. I'm really humbled by the wealth of knowledge and experience of the participants in this event and what has been heard. There are numerous examples of creative actions, policies, programs by city and local governments to improve the performance of food systems. And they face a lot of challenges. And FAO did a survey a few years ago to city and local stakeholders on how the food systems are used and how they fare under the pandemic. There are 2 fundamental issues that came up. One is that most city and local governments acted beyond their mandates and beyond their means. That is, they did everything to use food systems creatively to make sure that food security is preserved, nutrition, etc., etc. The second one, the key message was that there is a need for more coordinated action across sectors within an urban or local area, and also a vertical one between a city and global or national policies. So those 2 levels of coherence, which actually Jamie Morrison alluded to in his presentation. Now, we all know that many city governments and local governments lack the regulatory authority or the financial and technical means to do a fundamental reform in their food systems. Now, how do you overcome these kinds of challenges? Well, the how is a very complicated issue. You can look at it from many angles. What this panel actually will do is to take the angle of governance. That is, how you should create these types of governance conditions that will promote food system transformation at the urban and local level, but also influence national levels. And the other way around, how can national frameworks can be part of, can take into consideration local challenges. The other point is we are interested in the types of governance, that is the participation, and I think the last speaker, but also the closing remarks of the first chair of Mohammed, they transit us to this question, right? What kind of governance, the participation of stakeholders of all kinds in the effort by national and local governments is important. So closing this governance gap between national and local levels to increase consistency, coherence, and efficiency in food systems, I think is a puzzle that we have to resolve. Maybe not all of it in this event, but something that we should pursue. We also have some global actors in our panel that will guide us on how to make sure that the voice of the issue of local and urban food systems is brought up to international fora, that it gets more recognition than it actually has in the past. I think the Food Summit was a very important venue which gave the opportunity to raise this issue. And also how to raise the voices of the city governments in international fora. So it's to start with, it is my great pleasure as a first panelist to introduce the chair of what is called the utmost multi-stakeholder and intergovernmental platform on food systems, food security and nutrition, His Excellency Thanawat Tianzin, which is the chairperson of the Committee on World Food Security. I know, Mr. Chair, you have an important presentation tomorrow at the summit. Thank you very much for being with us. The CFS speaks straight to my heart after having been for 7 years or maybe more secretary to the committee. So, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, moderators. I know that your CFS, the Committee on World Food Securities, is in your heart because you have provided your service as a CFS secretary for a long time during and before the CFS reform. And that's why I would like to express our appreciation for your support. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting CFS to join these events today. I think we have heard several speakers already mention the importance of local and regional governments, cities, municipalities, and local authorities who work that play an important role for the urban food system. And all of us know that the urban food system are becoming increasingly important to address poverty, hungers, and malnutrition, especially when you look at the situation of the COVID pandemic. I think it's obviously the municipalities, local governments play an important role to ensure food securities, to ensure food distribution, social protections during the crisis. Because the municipalities, local governments, they are working closely to people, and they know they know exactly what the real need of people. And that's why when we are talking about the urban food securities, the local governments play an important role. And that's why since the CFS, the Committee on World Food Securities reform in 2009, CFS remained the UN unique multi-stakeholder platform for advancing food securities and nutrition. And we work closely with the 3 Rome-based agencies, FAO, IFAD, WFP, and also other UN agencies to ensure that, I have heard from one speaker, we need to ensure that sometimes the voice of vulnerable, marginalized people are not heard by the government or by others. And that's why after the reform, the CFS included private sectors, civil societies, research institutions, and other stakeholders to discuss on the global policy convergence on food securities and nutrition to ensure that the food issues is not the issues of the government only, but we need to hear all other stakeholders who are around the food system. And you are the one who can transform the food system to more resilient, more sustainable. If you remember this year, in February, we just adopted the new voluntary guideline on food system and nutrition. We spent hundreds of hours to negotiate these global policies. But the local government, municipalities, will play an important role to bring the global policies and translate the policies into action at the local level. Because we don't want to bring this book and keep on the bookshelf. If no one uses it, if no one utilizes it, it's just a document that we spend our time and energies and resources during the negotiation, even though we say that this is the only global negotiated multilaterally policies. But we need to bring the policies into action at the local level, at the country level, to make sure that we can ensure food securities and nutrition for all, and also to ensure the transforming to sustainable food system. And that's why we need your help. And I can give you another example. This one, if you remember, I think our moderator can remember clearly. This one is a voluntary guideline on land tenure. And thank you, FAO, for great support to bring this guideline into action in 140 countries. And now many people can get access to land. They can have the right to own their own land. Many countries have a land reform, have a new legislation. And that's why the role of the Committee on World Food Securities to support the government, to support the local government. And right now we are discussing with the UN Food System Summit and also with the 3 Rome-based agencies about the follow-up of the Food System Summit. How we can bring the Food System Summit, how we can bring the science and policy interface to the regional, national, and local level. Because we want to hear more from local people, we want to hear more from the local government. And that's why today that you organize, because today you call it Local and Regional Government Day. All of you are the champion who can transform our food system and also to bring the global policies into to the national policies and to the local policies to make sure that the local action can make an impact at the global level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are delighted to hear from you that the recognition of local governments and the importance that they have in translating this science policy interface into local policies and local programs. We also hope that the voice of local governments and urban governments could eventually be part of the governing bodies of the committee as another important partner and advisor. So thank you very much for that. Let me go to make 2 short announcements. First of all, for people to keep within their time, which they have been given. Thank you very much. The second is we have the chat box that you can ask questions. We will try, based on the time we have, to respond to them at the end. Okay, so the other one. That's the second announcement. Now, it is also my privilege and pleasure to introduce the second speaker, who is a dear friend and also associated with CFS in the past, but also associated with the SDGs and a number of very important processes throughout his career. So it is my pleasure to present His Excellency Gabriel Ferrero, Ambassador at Large for Global Food Security, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, European Union and Cooperation of Spain. Gabriel, if I can still call you Gabriel, you have the floor, sir.
Why not, my dear Costas, my dear friend Costas, and good afternoon, dear colleagues. Thank you very much indeed for this invitation, first to the UCLG and the Global Task Force, also FAO. It is always a pleasure to join your efforts to bring to life this new multilateralism where cities, regional and local governments are part of the global deliberation and of the global spaces. And if you allow me, I'm going to shift to Spanish now, as it's my duty as a Spanish official when translation is available. Voy a tratar de sintetizar construyendo sobre las riquísimas experiencias que hemos escuchado. Estoy impresionado por muchas de ellas, como siempre que escuchamos a los gobiernos locales o a los actores locales del ámbito rural o del ámbito de las ciudades, compartir sus experiencias para avanzar de una manera integrada, en este caso alrededor de la nutrición y la alimentación, pero también en otros aspectos de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenibles. Bueno, la primera idea de todas las que he escuchado que quería resaltar la ha pronunciado Emilia anteriormente. Las ciudades o lo urbano no equivale a simples consumidores. Lo urbano equivale a, hoy en día y más en el futuro va a ser así, a agenda shapers o global shapers, si queremos llamarlo así, a actores que tienen la capacidad de traccionar un determinado modelo de producción, de consumo, que tiene mucho que ver, obviamente, con la alimentación. Pero no solo por este motivo, es también porque si los sistemas alimentarios, como la propia cumbre ha puesto encima de la mesa como lema, son conectores, son el sustrato de todos los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible, es en gran medida porque establecen en cada alimento, en cada porción de alimentos que consumimos, un vínculo con los recursos naturales, con el agua, con el carbono capturado en el campo, en los bosques, por las propias plantas, con la tierra, con los suelos, con quienes lo producen, con el modo en que lo producen, con el modo en que se transporta. Es, por lo tanto, algo que, como bien decía Emilia, nos vincula con lo territorial, con los vínculos entre el campo y las ciudades. A veces me pregunto si la propia denominación Urban Food Systems, por supuesto, que tanto celebramos, refleja adecuadamente esta realidad. La segunda reflexión, construyendo sobre lo que decía Jamie en su conferencia inicial, efectivamente, son varias las coherencias, como decías, Costas, o las integraciones a las que tenemos que asistir para que los sistemas agroalimentarios transformen nuestras sociedades, como decía Vicente Domingo del CEMAS de Valencia anteriormente. La primera es la más obvia, ahora no lo era hace pocos años, porque ha sido fuertemente introducida por la Agenda 2030. Es la integración multisectorial, la integración entre disciplinas, una integración horizontal. La segunda también la tomamos casi como un hecho desde hace unos pocos años que tenemos la Agenda 2030, es la integración y en menor medida multinivel. En menor medida porque el propio sistema de seguimiento de toda la Agenda 2030 y por lo tanto de los sistemas agroalimentarios incorpora los niveles nacionales, regionales y mundiales, los niveles globales. Pero la Agenda 2030 ya no es tan específica ni tan desarrollada respecto a los niveles subnacionales y locales. Y la tercera de estas coherencias o integraciones es especialmente carente todavía, que es la integración espacial, la integración entre territorios. Esa integración que nos trae a la necesidad de considerar sistémicamente las ciudades con el área que las rodea y también con los territorios rurales donde se producen bienes públicos, incluyendo la alimentación, que ni siquiera están en su proximidad y pueden estar incluso en otro continente. Esos territorios que toman forma de ciudades cuando son concentrados y que toman forma de paisajes, de ecosistemas, cuando hablamos de una mayor escala, esa dimensión de más territorios. Bien, si vemos qué es lo que se requiere para transformar los sistemas, ¿qué significa transformar los sistemas agroalimentarios? Bueno, significa evidentemente que todo el mundo, toda la humanidad tenga acceso a una nutrición adecuada, a su cultura, con nutrientes y, por supuesto, seguridad alimentaria, pero también implica esa transformación de los sistemas alimentarios, alcanzar la erradicación de la pobreza rural. Incorpora articular territorios a través de los sistemas alimentarios, territorios vibrantes, soportes de la vida natural, pero también de la historia, de la tradición y de la alimentación local. Implica la restauración, la preservación y la gestión sostenible de los recursos naturales. Por lo tanto, lo que implica es hacer uso de esas 4 integraciones, yo mencionaría. La multinivel, que tiene que ver con la gobernanza, con traer en la misma mesa a los diferentes gobiernos locales, subnacionales, nacionales, supranacionales, hasta las instituciones globales. Tiene que ver con hacer efectiva una gobernanza que integre en los territorios, sea una ciudad o sea una agrupación de pequeñas ciudades o de pequeñas municipalidades, también una gobernanza igualmente integradora de sectores y de instituciones y de actores. Tiene que ver, por supuesto, con la integración entre las diferentes disciplinas y tiene que ver con la integración entre los territorios, las ciudades y demás. Concluyendo, quizás deberíamos hablar de gobernanza para sistemas urbanos rurales alimentarios o quizás sistemas urbanos alimentarios para transformar los territorios rurales. No sé qué denominación podríamos utilizar. Desde luego, traer esta participación, este formato a la discusión a nivel global de los sistemas alimentarios inclusivos y sostenibles es esencial. Agradezco muchísimo al presidente del Comité de Seguridad Alimentaria Mundial este reconocimiento. Yo he sido propuesto como candidato para presidir este comité en el próximo bienio y si fuera elegido, traería desde luego a los gobiernos locales y regionales y subnacionales a la mesa de la discusión del comité. Me parece esencial para avanzar en este nuevo multilateralismo que mencionaba inicialmente. Muchísimas gracias, Costas y compañeras.
Thank you very much, Gabriel. I think there are several news that we heard from you, including that you're a candidate for the CFS chair. But I really am taken by your passion about localizing things that are, we should not look at cities like consumers, but as the points of aggregators of territorial systems and the different types of integrations we need, spatial, institutional, vertical, and horizontal. So we are delighted as organizers to hear that from you, because this is exactly the thesis behind this whole event. Let me continue, because I'm not that good in managing the time. Let's move to the participants, some of the participants that are in the front line of managing urban food systems and local food systems, among other things. So it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mohamed Sefiani, Mayor of Chefchaouen, otherwise known as Chaouen, if I'm not mistaken, in Morocco. Mr. Mayor, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Tout d'abord, je tiens à remercier Emilia, Global Task Force, FAO, pour m'avoir invité à participer à cet important événement. Moi, je serai très bref par rapport à mon intervention. On a vu que la pandémie a montré encore une fois le rôle très important des villes qui a été joué durant le confinement, durant cette pandémie, le rôle attendu lors du post-pandémie, post-Covid, et notamment dans la livraison des services publics et aussi dans le système alimentaire. Les villes intermédiaires, par exemple, qui sont caractérisées pour ce rapport urbain-rural et ces circuits très courts de production et de consommation, il était très important, surtout dans la phase de confinement, ça a été très vu que ce rapport-là rural a aidé beaucoup pour la sécurisation de l'alimentation et notamment parce qu'il y avait des déplacements inter-régions, inter-grandes villes, etc. C'était pas évident à l'époque. Au niveau de ma ville de Chefchaouen, nous, déjà, ça fait 11 ans, exactement en 2010, nous avions lancé une initiative par rapport à ce sujet-là. Et nous avons présenté notre candidature avec trois autres villes méditerranéennes pour l'obtention de la reconnaissance de l'UNESCO comme patrimoine immatériel de l'humanité, ce qui a été baptisé la Dieta Mediterránea, ou bien la culture alimentaire méditerranéenne. Donc, nous sommes reconnus comme patrimoine immatériel dans ce domaine-là. Et surtout, c'est un processus, c'est une culture alimentaire du champ à la table et bien sûr tout ce qui passe avec, le respect des personnes, des femmes et des hommes, du monde rural, de la ville, le respect de l'environnement, le respect du climat Et tout ça, bien sûr, dans le cadre d'un respect d'une culture alimentaire saine et qui est produite localement avec des recettes locales. Et bien sûr, nous avons chaque année, nous travaillons en réseau. Maintenant, nous sommes 7 villes parce qu'en 2013, nous étions rejoints par 3 autres villes méditerranéennes. Nous sommes 7 pays, 7 villes. Et nous travaillons par rapport à ce sujet-là. Nous avons même un secrétariat commun et nous harmonisons nos actions et nous partageons nos expériences dans ce processus-là, cette culture alimentaire méditerranéenne qui respecte les aspects que j'ai notés. Moi, je voulais aussi partager avec vous trois grandes idées, 3 idées clés. Tout d'abord, l'idée 1, c'est les villes et les territoires ne doivent plus être compris comme uniquement des consommateurs et des producteurs de nourriture, mais plutôt comme des acteurs qui jouent le rôle des catalyseurs d'une nouvelle gouvernance alimentaire inclusive, qui s'appuie sur la solidarité et donne la priorité à la prise en charge au bien-être des personnes, des communautés et de la planète. Le rôle des villes et des gouvernements locaux et régionaux dans la transformation du système alimentaire est certes de plus en plus reconnu, mais leurs capacités et leur potentiel ne sont pas toujours pleinement utilisés. Ça a été très clair par rapport à l'ensemble des villes et en particulier par rapport aux villes intermédiaires, et ça fait partie aussi de la déclaration de Chefchaouen du Forum mondial des villes intermédiaires, de ces élus. La deuxième idée que je veux partager, c'est la création de réseaux entre les sphères du gouvernement avec les organisations de la société civile, les communautés autochtones, les agriculteurs, agricultrices et autres parties prenantes est fondamentale pour mettre en place des systèmes alimentaires transparents et inclusifs au niveau de la ville pour permettre le partage d'informations et de connaissances, de promouvoir le concept de citoyenneté alimentaire. Et je partage la dernière idée clé. Les systèmes alimentaires ont un impact important sur les émissions de gaz à effet de serre et des approches intégrées sont nécessaires pour assurer le trajet de la ferme à la table jusqu'au traitement des déchets. À cet égard, une approche territoriale des systèmes alimentaires permet de prendre en compte les liens urbains-ruraux et les émissions tout au long du processus, y compris son impact sur les biens communs mondiaux tels que l'eau, la biodiversité et les ressources écosystèmes. Donc, je terminerai par l'annonce. Il y avait même une circulaire du CG du Monde. Nous aurons le 2e Forum mondial des villes intermédiaires à Kütahya du 5 au 8, à Kütahya en Turquie. Et ce sujet de sécurité alimentaire sera un des sujets clés que nous allons aborder. Voilà, donc soyons au rendez-vous, soit en présentiel, soit en digital. Et merci beaucoup encore une fois.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think some of your key messages are very important for us, like synergies between the local governments and local communities and the civil society, the importance that cities and localities may have on global sustainability through management of resources, and gave the waste management example, that we want to better understand urban and local as catalysts rather than just consumers or producers. And finally, we're very much interested in the Forum of Mid-Sized Cities, which are extremely important. Actually, by looking at demographic changes, they will have the key role in the future. So I'm sure everybody will try to find out more about the forum that you will have in Turkey. So thank you very much. I'm moving to my next speaker. Again, participants in the front line, it's my pleasure to call on Dr. Mushahid Sami Kuchuktigli. Please, if I massacre your names, please correct it when you take the floor, which is the Director of Foreign Relations in the city of Konya, or Iconium, like others used to know it, and Secretary General of Union of Agricultural Cities of Turkey. Dr. Mushahid, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, dear Kostas. Good evening from Turkey, from Agricultural Cities Union. The world has been in a process of change since its first steps on mankind. We have been getting more and more crowded since the day we discovered agriculture and settled life. We are changing the world in order to survive. We have already crossed borders while our resources are running low, and we plan to live on other planets. In the age of technology, we are sending astronauts, tourists to the space, and at the same time, we are fighting hunger. According to the United Nations, 3 billion people in the world are experiencing difficulties in reaching healthy nutrition, and more than nearly 700 million people are starving. More than 100 million people live with chronic hunger, as hunger-related deaths are steadily increasing. Nearly 900 million tons of food are wasted every year around the world. The seeds thrown into ground, the rain falling for it, the sun rising with hope every morning on the growing, streams, seas, fish, animals whose milk, skin, and meat are nourishing us. All of these works flawlessly to ensure that we live our lives in a repeating cycle. Life is a miracle that we don't know it is value, unfortunately. But we are about to disrupt this miracles cycle. It is known that if we continue to live and consume on this day in this way, our resources will not be enough for us. Unfortunately, we have experienced this recently after the COVID-19 pandemic. Everyone knows production in some countries came to a standstill. The shelves of the grocery stores we trusted a lot are empty. We have seen how resources can be quickly depleted by mass movements. We have become more aware that what we think of as science fiction can really happen. Before it is too late, we must strive not to waste our crops and our generation in the world. According to estimates, 2 out of the 3 of the world's population will live in cities by 2050. In order to meet the nutritional and vital needs of the population exceeding 10 billion in the world that is moving away from rural life, agricultural production needs to be increased by 70%. The pressure on countries is gradually increasing due to declining agricultural areas in cities and climate change. In order to prevent the famine and hunger that await us in the future, we have to think before it is too late, act urgently. We are on the verge of a century when we need to pay more attention to our land. We need to make more use of our land. For example, in Turkey, which has a surface area of nearly 80 million hectares, has nearly 20 million hectares of forest, 15 million hectares of rangelands, and more than 20 million hectares of agricultural land. And also, nearly 80% of the population lives in metropolitan cities. In the light of these data, metropolitan cities in Turkey have a great role in agricultural development. We know that the world is increasingly experiencing a process of change in the agricultural field towards techniques that will increase productivity, technology use, smart agricultural practices, storage, and agricultural revenues. Local governments definitely support this change process with their own unique projects. It is now a necessity for local governments to be at the forefront of agricultural development in many areas, such as the promotion of alternative products, geographical indications, organic farming practices, efficient irrigation techniques, the use of renewable energy in agriculture, joint studies with the private sector, universities, and research institutes. For this purpose, dear colleagues, agricultural cities meeting was held in Konya of Turkey with the ambassadors and mayors of 10 countries from Europe, Asia, and Africa. After the unity messages in the field of agriculture, it was decided to establish the Agri-Cities International Agricultural Cities Association. In response to this, the International Union of Agricultural Cities was established with the joint initiative and decision of 13 metropolitan municipalities. The International Union of Agricultural Cities aims to realize the exchange of experience and knowledge for the future of the agricultural sector by creating a common synergy together with all agricultural cities in the world and to cooperate in the economic and technical field. This Agri-Cities Association, which was launched in Konya, known as the agricultural city of Turkey with the heritage of Çatalhöyük, the first agricultural civilization of the world, and Anatolia, and the starting point of agriculture, will bring a new energy and new power to Turkey and the world in the field of agriculture. The International Union of Agricultural Cities will bring together the cities born and existing in agriculture and enable them to exchange technology, production, power, and cooperation to resolve problems in world agriculture. We are together to achieve a more beautiful tomorrow for the future of the world and for agricultural activities to be more valuable tomorrow than today, so that the crops produced with an effort doesn't go to waste, no one dies of hunger, the happiness of the harvest spreads to farmer, and the fertility of the crop spreads to the earth. The cities and municipalities can be member to Agri-Cities very easily. You can find more information agricities.com web address, and you can ask any question by info@agricities.com email address. Thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity to UCLG and Mrs. Emilia, and thank you very much, Mr. Costas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I like the way you brought us from global trends to local action. I'm sure that a lot of people would be interested to see how an international union of agricultural cities can actually, through a network of changes in experience, technology, etc., make big differences the way agriculture is practiced, because usually when one thinks about agriculture, doesn't think about cities. So this is an extremely innovative approach to make cities as leverage, the way things are produced. So I'm sure our participants will look into it to find out more. Thank you very much. My next speaker again continue with the those in the forefront of food systems. I'm calling Mr. Gilchrist Okwom, which is Minister of Agriculture, Irrigation, Livestock, and Fisheries in Kisumu County in Kenya. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Costas. My name is Gilchrist Okwom, the County Minister for Agriculture, Irrigation, Livestock, and Fisheries, Kisumu County. Kisumu County is the third largest city in Kenya, and it's a unique city in that it's both urban and rural. So as opposed to the other cities within the country, Kisumu is unique on the shores of Lake Victoria and has both the hinterland and the city. In Kenya, just for purposes of information, we have a two-tier government where we have 47 county governments and the national government. So after the promulgation of a new constitution in 2010, a number of functions were devolved to the county governments. Agriculture happens to be one of them that was devolved to the county government. So we have a number of mechanisms in which we have been cooperating in the food systems. I must say that Kisumu plays a central role, not only in the country, but in the region, East African region, because of its centrality. In this, it plays a key role as a center where food is exchanged from one country to the other and from one city to the other cities. So we play a very critical role in the food system within the entire region. Kisumu County or Kisumu City also happens to be the regional headquarters for Lake Region Economic Bloc, which is one of the economic blocks within the country. As a government, as a county government, Kisumu has domiciled a number of policies and national treaties that Kenya is signatory to. One of the main strategies that Kenya has was Kenya Vision 2030. This is a long-term economic blueprint which has three pillars: the social, political, and economic pillars. Agriculture is anchored in the economic pillar, and as such, this is a flagship in many aspects of the food systems. So this plays an indirect and direct role in the food systems. For instance, in the infrastructural development, these are roles that are played both by the national government and the county government. For instance, connectivity between Kisumu City and the rest of the region. The roads that are worked on by the national government, the roads that are worked on by the county government. This connectivity enhances the food systems because it ensures that food gets its way from the farms up to the market. There's also the importance role that we are now developing the port on the Lake Victoria, which will enhance connectivity between Kisumu and the other countries within the region. This will create ease of movement of food within the entire region. Kenya as a country also has developed a strategy that is known as Agricultural Sector Transformation and Growth Strategy for 2019 to 2029. These are cascaded up to the county level, where we ensure that these strategies do not remain at the national level, but we create mechanisms where we domesticate the same. And then we get the aspects in which are critical in the food system. We also, as a government, we have the Big Four agenda, whose one of the pillars is food and nutrition security. As a city, this is very key for us because we have the rural folk who are smallholder farmers who supply their produce to the city. Through this food and nutrition security pillar, we are looking at enhancing not only the production of food, but also its safety, both at production level and also at market levels. We must take cognizance of the fact that the COVID-19 pandemic has really affected the way in which our food systems are organized, but we are in the process of bringing back to productivity all this we have. We, as a county government, have also worked on a number, like in the manifestos that we do, to bring agriculture, not for subsistence, but as a business. So this has played a key role in the food systems within our country and within our county. We have the County Integrated Development Plan running from 2018 to 2022, where food plays a big role. And we are in the process of making more legislations in the food system agenda. That is what I can say for now. I'm grateful that we have this opportunity to participate in this international forum. Thank you so much to FAO, UCLG, and the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is really refreshing to hear that city and a county have a big role to play in determining not only their own agricultural futures, but also the territory, because you talked about connections with the territory, which is the types of things we really after, and the types of things that we try to raise here, that you also part of that the national development plans are localized and domesticated and translated into action by county and states. By the way, I have to say that Kisumu, for me, I read for the first time that is an example of a place where was actually what was spontaneous urbanization. That is, it was created from the increasing activity within the rural areas that created the city of Kisumu, and is an example of this spontaneous urbanization, that it was not planned from the very beginning. So it's great to hear from you the types of connections that you have created regarding agri-food system. Now, let me, last but absolutely not least, a dear colleague from the Working Group on Urban Food Systems, an academic among us, Professor Jane Battersby, Associate Professor, African Center for Cities, University of Cape Town, South Africa. Jane, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Costas, and it's always a joy to be last in a long program. So let me start. There's an urgent and pressing need for greater policy and planning attention to be paid to urban food systems transformation. As we know, the world is more than 50% urban in population, and as we heard, by 2050, it will be 75%. We also know that 70% of food consumed in the world is consumed in urban areas, and our food systems are considerable drivers of greenhouse gas emissions, of water usage, of waste, but they're also key drivers of livelihoods and a number of social benefits. But the challenge is that despite their really central role in the economies, the social lives, the sustainability of our cities and of their hinterlands, food somehow remains resolutely off the political agenda in much of the world. Additionally, urban aspects of the food system and their governance remain largely absent from national and global food systems discussions. And both of these gaps need to shift in order to bring about sustainable and equitable food systems. So a coalition focusing on urban food systems, is an essential component of bringing the urban food system to the attention of local, national, and global governance structures, and leveraging their individual and collective capacities for urban food system transformation. Now, one of the big challenges and one of the big opportunities we have is that there's been significant research, significant advocacy, and local scale policy work, but we currently lack a clear institutional hub to connect, to coordinate, and to amplify these efforts. An Urban Food Systems Coalition provides an opportunity to build on these efforts. The question is, how should this coalition work? I want to make just 4 quick points, and the first 2 have been said a number of times today. Firstly, vertical integration. It's clear that there's a really important role for local government in reshaping urban food systems, but many of the factors shaping those food systems operate beyond the urban scale, and the decisions that are made at the urban scale have wide-reaching implications. So the coalition therefore needs to work across all levels of government, with local government at the heart of the coalition, vertical integration. Secondly, it needs to be transversal. Factors shaping food systems extend well beyond the commonly assumed food issues. Urban food systems are driven by issues of local economies, of transport, of infrastructure, of social policies. And so the coalition needs to guide local government in developing transversal policy and planning approaches. The third point is it needs to be inclusive. Food systems are shaped by a wide range of stakeholders and affect all who use them. So the coalition should work to co-design and co-deliver policy, planning, and governance through including a wide range of stakeholders, being hyper-aware of the issues of power and exclusion that we see in our food systems. And so this starts with working with those most impacted by the food systems in the generation of evidence. And that evidence should then be used to develop viable policies and programs, which will only be feasible if those most affected by the food systems are included. And so the way we do this, well, we think about including structures like food labs, food policy councils, and other forms of collaborative governance that can be regionally and locally networked, and can also serve to generate local political will, because a lack of political will in the urban is a critical challenge. But again, how do we do this? And this, I think, comes down to the 4th point. It's around leveraging on existing networks. So to make this work, it's going to require strong peer-to-peer and C2C networks, support in developing policy positions, as well as generating and using evidence to develop innovative and viable responses. And this, I think, is where the existing Urban Food Systems Working Group comes in. The working group currently includes 6 policy and advocacy networks, working with cities around the world on a range of both urban-specific issues and urban food-related issues. It also currently includes 13 other organizations and academic institutions working to develop knowledge products and policy recommendations, as well as including 7 UN agencies. And this working group is continuing to grow, and it has the capacity to facilitate multi-level global to local dialogue, to facilitate transversal and inclusive local governance approaches, to support peer-to-peer and city-to-city networks, and to generate new knowledge that's responsive to needs, but also advise on generating the kinds of evidence required to move the agenda forward. We're looking at evidence that's food system specific, collaboratively generated and analyzed, and actionable. So fundamentally, and to conclude, I believe an urban food systems coalition is urgently needed, and it has the potential to be transformative at the local, national, and global scales. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Always to the point and succinct. I think we started, as we were talking, we started thinking that our issue is everybody's issue, and you landed us a little bit hard, I would say. It says, look, this debate is really missing, or at least missing to the extent that it should be there, the urban food system debate. And I think we tend to agree with you, and that's what the big effort is all about. Thank you for bringing the fundamental elements of a coalition, the vertical integration, the inclusiveness in terms of sectors, transversality, the inclusiveness in terms of agents and participants, and finally, the need to leverage what we have at this point in order to make sure that we move the 3 key axes of what it is a coalition. Now, there have not been questions as such. There has been an interesting debate on the chat on the local governments need national governments and national governments need local governments. And what the summit has actually offered in this type of dialogue, I think you have seen it. The question of how to bring those urban and local governments to this global alliance to the fore, I think Jane has given a response to this question. So given the time, I want to thank all of you in the panel and pass the floor to Emilia. Emilia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Costas, and congratulations for a job well done and a wonderful, a luxury panel, I would say. Very, very interesting inputs, which have been both inspirational, but also very concrete on the proposals that have been made. So we are going to wrap up now, and we're going to start with closing remarks by Mr. Lawrence Haddad, the Executive Director of the Global Alliance on Improved Nutrition. We're really pleased to have you with us, and thank you for the support that you have been granting to our work together.
Emilia, absolutely happy to do that. First of all, can you hear me? Yes? Yeah.
Very well.
Emilia, very happy to do it. And like Costas, I thought this was there were 2 really interesting panels with some very good keynote speakers to open up the session. So let me do the formalities first. Let me thank the organizers and the distinguished guests and the speakers. So let me thank, first of all, the Global Task Force of local and regional governments. Fantastic. Thank you for your work on this. Also, the United Cities and Local Government, the UCLG. Thank you. FAO, of course, is a big long-term partner with GAIN. I'd like to thank my GAIN colleagues as well. And of course, the working group on urban food systems. I wish I had time to thank every one of the distinguished guests, but I particularly want to thank you, Emilia, for your leadership as Secretary General of UCLG. I'd like to thank Jamie, Jamie Morrison, who's been a rock for us in Action Track 1 and for many of the other action tracks in this summit, as well as his day job as Director of Food Systems and Food Safety at FAO. I'd like to thank His Excellency Tanawat Tenzin. Tanawat, thank you for the work you're doing as chairperson of the Committee on World Food Security and for your talk. I'd like to thank His Excellency Gabriel Ferrero, the Ambassador at Large for Global Food Security in Spain, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Spain. And I would like to thank the Mayor of Chefchaouen in Morocco, Mr. Mohamed Safiani. I'd like to thank all of you very, very much. I'd also like to thank the cities and local governments and territories that engaged actively in the dialogues that happened in June and in the UNFSS pre-summit. So I'm not an expert in this space, and I'm kind of awed by the expertise, both experiential expertise and sort of more scientific expertise on these topics. But it strikes me that, and I hope you don't mind me being a little bit critical, but I found the background documents to the meeting quite hard to understand because some of the language is very technical and very specific. So I think it's great that the coalition is emerging, and of course GAIN will give its full support to the new coalition. But I would urge you to make it easier for others who are outside of the this very specialized space to understand, to quickly grasp some of the concepts. So I think I now understand some of the key concepts. I understand that urban food systems are kind of at this crossroad, the crossroad between sort of the vertical integration, which is really, the urban systems are the systems that connect the national to the local, and actually maybe even the regional to the national to the local. I understand that. And then the other axis that urban food systems are right at the crossroad of is this horizontal dimension, which is about integration across sectors, across stakeholders, and as Jane said, across systems, not just the food system. So I think that would be my first point. Try to make the language, now that you've got everything sorted out, try and make the language a bit more simple and accessible for simple souls like myself. I think the summit has, and I'm on my last 36 hours as Action Track chair. That's why I've got a big smile on my face, Costas. As an Action Track chair and looking at the summit from the inside, it's the summit has really reinforced a lot of these vertical and horizontal issues. On the horizontal issues, we all say now on the summit, and those of us who have been touched by the summit, that there's no going back. You know, these outcomes are inextricably linked, whether they're health, hunger, food, environment, resilience, jobs, climate. They're all linked. You can't just say, you don't have the luxury of saying, I'm just going to focus on that one and kind of forget about the other ones. And not only do we not have that comfort, we actually have a whole bunch of opportunities to do things, to find those multiple wins. And I think the summit's also reinforced, and perhaps to a lesser extent, the national to the local. But I feel like the urban food system story now needs to become stronger post-summit than it has been within the summit. And I think the wide variety of urban settings, and that is very heterogeneous, you know, urban food system, what does that mean? It means pretty much everything, a wide variety. But that wide variety has generated a wide variety of groups. And I think it's great that the coalition is going to try to defragment this space. We want the diversity, we want the heterogeneity, but I don't think you want 50 initiatives because it's, or maybe 500 initiatives, because it's really hard for others to get behind that. So I'm really happy to see that there'll be some sort of aggregation, not into this big monolithic thing, but at least some connecting of the dots. And I think that's really important, because I think this community needs to speak with a more singular voice, again, with lots of different accents and lots of different messages, but with some high level singular messages. I think it needs to connect effort. I think it can become much more influential than it is currently if it does that. I think the learning across groups will be maximized, and I think the pooling of and generation of evidence, such as Jane was talking about, will be accelerated by this. So I'm really happy that this community has decided that a coalition is the right way to go. I personally agree with that, and I'm very committed to GAIN supporting it in any way we can. I would think that the next phase is really to show how the coalition adds value, and I think we've got two opportunities. One is at COP. That may be a bit too early for this coalition. The COP in Glasgow, which is only really about 6 weeks away. That may be too early, but it may be good to do a press release or press briefing on the coalition for the COP26, because again, none of these issues are separable. They're all inextricably linked. And I know cities are a big driver of compliance with greenhouse gas emission targets. And Nutrition for Growth, which is about 10 weeks away, is also a big opportunity for this coalition to show how it can add value. So I would really encourage the coalition to come together quickly and demonstrate its value add to those who care about urban food systems, but those who care about food systems full stop. At COP26, which might be a bit of a stretch, but certainly for Nutrition for Growth. So Costa, so Emilia, with that, let me pass it back to you.
Well, thank you very, very much for a critical, encouraging view of the discussions today and the work that is ahead. I think they have been really very wise words that we will take at heart. And some of your recommendations around building up this momentum and showing our value added are extremely relevant. I, like you, think that we need to show that at COP, and we might, it is very fast, but local and regional governments do have a space at COP, and let us use that to bring over this message. I also think that it's extremely relevant to hang on to the idea that the urban era is not about big metropolitan areas only or big cities. It's about intermediary cities and the territories and everything in between. And this narrative that we are developing around urban food systems goes beyond the settlements. It goes. It is about the symbiosis effect that needs to take place, and I think that has been mentioned also in the chat. I would like to end by saying that inclusivity, transversality, horizontal relationships, and the approach of all of government and all of society have come up very, very strongly. I think our constituency needs to make probably an additional effort to ensure that we make a clearer link between the role that we can play with the communities, with civil society, and linking it to the big questions for sustainability of humanity, such as the biodiversity agenda. Food systems is very, very linked with the biodiversity agenda, and we need to realize that. And not everybody is so aware of that, not certainly within our communities. Why do we all eat the same? Why is so little diversification? And how could proximity production systems play a role in this? So I think our constituency still has a job to do, a very good tool with this coalition. Indeed, we will amplify voices, but the voices will remain diverse. And I don't know, Jamie, you have been so patient, you are with us. I want to give you the opportunity to give us the closing remarks, not without thanking also the ambassadors that have been with us, the chairs of the committee, it is really relevant that you are with us, and the candidates to this future committee, also very relevant that you are with us. And thank you to the Secretary General of Orufogar, who I saw somewhere over there. The Global Task Force is united in this. Jamie, you wrap it up.
Thank you, Amelia, for giving me that opportunity, and thanks again to everybody for your participation. It really has been a rich discussion, learning from the experience of cities themselves, but also from those organizations which collectively are supporting and increasingly supporting cities and local government. So I think we've got a sort of springboard, as I was saying earlier, to move forward. Lawrence has suggested a number of next steps, whether that be connections to the COP and Nutrition for Growth, or simply getting the message clearer and more understandable. I think we sort of know what we're talking about, but now, particularly as we engage with national governments, I think to make the case, now is the time to make that case really clearly, and also to thank Lawrence again for his support. I think having the support of GAIN, and particularly you, Lawrence, given how much you've achieved through Action Track 1 over the past 12 to 18 months, will be a great boost to helping the coalition move forward. So look forward to working with all of you over the coming months. This is only the start, but I think a good start. We've got a good instrument to work with and to keep working together for a common purpose. So thanks again.
Thank you, teams, and thank you for all the participants and speakers. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.